Josh, you and I have talked about things that identify you as someone on the back nine, certain expressions people have, maybe clothing, different kinds of things. I came up with one other thing that identifies people on the back nine and maybe really on the back nine, and that is your digital footprint, your identity online that shows this. One of those things is if you have a Hotmail or Yahoo email address, which you and I both have a Hotmail, or the big one is if you still have an AOL email address, you're definitely on the back nine. So are we. So, Josh, you and I still have, I don't use it. It's like my spam email, but I do still have a Hotmail account. But Yahoo, yeah. AOL.
Whenever I use my Hotmail account, and especially if I'm dealing with someone in their 20s, I said, don't flame me for that. But, the reason I still have it is because that was my first real account, and I've got a zillion contacts. I don't. How do you tell people you have migrated to the other?
Well, I've done it so many times because of my business changes that I have a business account, and we just migrated everything. I was D Williams 3BC at Gmail, and we just bought the domain the3bridges so we could have a .com because we were 3bridges.co, which is garbage. So we're the3bridges.com, and now I migrated. Now I'm Dennis W at the3bridges.com. So I'm migrating all of my business email. And for me, it's one and the same. I just figure out I just go through the process of the context. It's actually a great way to purge. You realize what context you actually need. Like none of my contacts in my old Hotmail account, I don't even use it really. I'll go back in and I'll be like, it's all just junk. All of it, my Hotmail account. So I'm pretty much not a Hotmail guy anymore. I'm not even going to lay claim to that. But the AOL thing is...
that would be ancient.
Is something. Yeah.
Another thing, though, that I think removes us from, being too identifiable on the back nine as back nine people, although, we label it. These shirts that we're wearing are really cool.
Yeah, you have to be on our YouTube. You have to be on our YouTube channel.
Show off the hood.
Oh, the hood's so cool.
Right? Yeah, so there you go.
And I'm really impressed with your modeling of this.
Well, thank you.
When they first came out, Josh was like posing online with them. He was like doing his his Zoolander.
Yeah, my puppy dog
Blue Steel. Your Blue Steel. Stare.
But I want to thank our guys, my friend Sean Murphy at 3 and 2 Sports. They mostly do a lot of sports gear and apparel and a lot of baseball gear, but they'll also do, some custom orders like this. It's a wonderful. I love the weight of it. I love the feel of it.
Yeah, we were very big on these thin hoodies.
Yeah, we love hoodies, but 3n2sports.com is
cool.
them, so you can check them out. And so thanks, Sean. And as Dennis was kind of alluding to, you can win one of these.
Right.
We're going to, for the next, couple of weeks, if you subscribe to our YouTube account, which is Back Nine without a space between the word back and nine podcast on YouTube, and we're going to select a random winner to win one of these.
If you have to subscribe,
charcoal gray. Yeah, you have to subscribe.
The wonderful thing about the YouTube page, Josh, is you can actually see us now. Like, I know people were clamoring. I had so many people. Gene, how many people were calling you to the guy? Audio.
He sounds so
audio is good, but we've got to hear that guy. We got to hear that guy with the really. We got to hear that guy with that really deep voice. What does he look like? Is that what they were asking?
Nicely played.
I was more thinking they needed to hear you, Josh, because you have that very deep voice.
The voice is the voice, but then stay with the voice.
You're not disappointing. And you know what's not going to be disappointing?
No.
Is when I surprise you.
It's the surprise guest episode, isn't it?
When I surprise you with our guest right after this. All right, welcome back to the show. This is where we get to surprise Josh with our surprise guest of this season. Josh, no surprise, this person is a Western New York native.
Okay.
Rochester to be exact, but also lived in Buffalo.
Okay.
He won
Rochester native.
two tournaments over his PGA career, but had a very prolific run of 55 top 10s from 1991 to 2009. Injuries definitely plagued his career and may be the reason why he's not playing as much golf like on the senior tour, but he has an even better job than that. He is currently the assistant coach at the University of Florida, the golf team that won the national championship a couple years ago. Any guesses?
Yeah, I have two guesses. Rochester native was the clue?
Yeah.
Dudley Hart?
Yes!
Hey! How about that?
Well done, Josh.
Fantastic.
Impressive, and I knew you'd know him.
Yeah, so nice to meet you. I'm a fan.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you...
Good for the ego there, guys. I was going to be really depressed if it took you like 50 guesses.
It came down to you or Jeff Sluman. Those were the two names in my head. So,
yeah, he won more. Slew won more than me, so that would have
Well,
I narrowed it down for you a little.
Yeah.
You know, what's interesting, Dudley, is until I researched, I mean, I knew you had a great career, and I probably vaguely knew about the injury stuff, but the injuries were significant. Like, it's not like anything, and I mean, I'm sorry to start a negative, we'll get positive,
No,
but,
fine.
but you really went through some stuff, and, you know, take us through that and how hard that was, like, just not just physically, but mentally, to be at the peak of your athletic career, you know, winning a couple tournaments and then having it taken away from you.
Yeah, it was kind of a slow process. I fought the good fight for a long time. It kind of all started, never really had a problem physically until we actually went to before the British Open. Jeff Sluman, ironically, and I, and Tim Herron and Lindy Ruff and four of us, we had 8 of us that went to Ireland to practice before the British Open. You know, the golf over there on links golf so much different. And we had a couple cold beverages too along the way. We went over there and I actually hurt my back over there for the first time. I hit a shot. Something popped in my back. I felt like I got stabbed, kind of went down to a knee, and I was like, what the heck's this? So long story short, I ended up going to the British Open. I was at St. Andrews that year and I walked the practice rounds, chipped and putted, was getting a ton of therapy, didn't really know what happened. And unfortunately, back then, the therapy, I don't want to rag on the guys that were trying to help me over there, but it wasn't the therapists that we're used to on the PGA Tour. And they didn't know us. And it was, they were kind of like, well, we could just shoot you up, have a doctor shoot you up, and you won't feel anything from the waist down. And I'm like, well, I don't know if that's good either. And I want to ruin my whole career. So basically, long story short, I herniated a disc there and ended up playing and somehow making the cut, but I ended up withdrawing on Saturday. I just couldn't. Every shot I hit, there was a jolt going down my leg. Probably one of the prouder things I've done in my career is to make a cut the way I felt, even though I didn't finish the tournament. But anyway, I managed it pretty well for about pretty close to 10 years after that. Had to change how I practiced a little bit. Had to start working out and stretching, and before and after it was a lot more maintenance. Unfortunately, early on in my career, they never talk about strength training or conditioning. Really, it was, the only thing we ever did was, try to make, do stuff for our legs, strengthen our lower body and do some core stuff. And that was it. They used to think picking up weights and for a golfer would be bad because you'd get stiff and lose mobility. And obviously that's changed a lot now.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I managed it for a while and I ended up I guess the way I swing or whatever, I just kept wearing out that disc and I ended up having a lot of problems and ended up wearing out that disc and saw 4 different doctors over the course of a couple months, and 3 of the 4 told me I couldn't play golf anymore. And one said, well, if I fuse it, you might have a chance to play for some more. Well, I said, that's better than, just not playing at all. So I had a fusion done, and unfortunately they kind of misplaced a couple screws, and I didn't know that for a couple years, and I actually thought I was done and got it fixed. And then I played a little bit on and off, but yeah, that was, my back, I had a pretty good run. I don't like to say the woe was me, but it is mentally draining between 2 spinal fusion surgeries. And my left thumb is kind of what did me in. Left thumb for right-handed golfers are pretty important.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty important piece. I could cut my right thumb off and still play fine, but
don't, by the way, don't do that.
No, I'm not planning on doing that. I need it for other things, I'm sure. But anyway, that's the one that, I played a couple years on the Champions Tour, but it just kind of everything physically was just took the fun out of competing. I didn't feel like I could compete at the level I wanted to. And fighting through all that stuff got to be a little more than I was willing to deal with. And I kind of told my wife after the thumb, I said, no more non-life threatening surgeries for me, and fortunately it worked out great for me because I got to come back to my school and I'm having a blast coaching these kids at the University of Florida now.
I want to ask you about that in a second, but what's funny about this, Dudley, is I know a story about that trip that you took with Tim Herron and Jeff Sluman and Lindy. I was playing in a pro-am with Lindy, and he told a story. You guys were at St. Andrews, is what I remember. I might be wrong about that. And he said the townspeople heard that there were PGA Tour pros out there, and so they came to watch, and they're lining the fairway very closely because they were, with you and Tim and Jeff, there was no issue. He's a hockey coach. He's like, I could easily kill 5 people with one wayward drive. So, but let's go back to Florida. To how much fun is it to be able to pass your knowledge, your experience, to work with the kids to help them get better? What do you find so enjoyable about it?
What I find, I'm really lucky. I'm around, at the University of Florida, we get really high level players, talented kids that come here. They have a lot to work on. They're still kids. They were like I was at that age. They're they're full of piss and vinegar and they think they can do everything and they don't ever, don't ever worry about any consequences, which is good in a way. But I just be around these kids that have the same dream that I had at that age. They all want to play the PGA Tour. And I feel like, I hope this doesn't sound cocky because I don't mean it to sound that way, but like, especially for nowadays, golfers, everybody on our team has a swing coach. Like I know a lot about the golf swing, but I also know that I didn't spend 30 years of my life teaching golf. I spent 30 years of my life playing golf, getting lessons from some of the best teachers in the world, being around the best players in the world, best sports psychologists, every day focusing on how I can practice, play, manage myself around the golf course, learning my tendencies. Like I could go on forever and ever, but I feel like my background is kind of I'm perfect for what college golfers need. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, but
I love that.
That's the piece that they miss.
Right.
They have the technical help. They have, which we help. JC and I at Florida, we help them some, but most of what we do is just be another set of eyes for their swing coach, at least for their full swing. And what I spend a lot of my time doing is short game. It's a very under-taught piece of the game at this age for the most part, typically. And I'm not ragging on teachers because I've come from a family of golf pros and kids want to go get a lesson and they go sit in the hitting bay and they look at the video and they look at where their swing is. But most coaches don't, either the player doesn't want it or the coach doesn't do it, whatever the scenario is, they don't spend as much time working on the short game. And that's really the lost art of the game because it's endless, the amount of scenarios that this game can throw at you from different grasses and different golf courses. And having an answer to those different situations is what will define you being a good or a great golfer in the end.
First of all, I have more questions about Florida, but congratulations to 2023. You guys were national champs as well. So all of that coaching, that was a recent national championship. So that's kudos to you guys and the coaching staff and the team that was able to accomplish that. But one of the things is, as a coach in college, you are imparting, you're on the back nine like we are. You're imparting your wisdom, right? You're imparting a lot of things beyond the game of golf. Golf teaches us a lot of things. How much do you get into those kinds of things with the kids, like the life lessons that they learn, not only from golf, but just from experiences that you've had with your life? How much are you like almost like a
lot. I mean, I think that's a really, really big part of this job, at least in my opinion. Listen, they all want to play the PGA Tour, but there's a high probability that none of them will, right? It's just statistically speaking, it's highly unlikely. I told them, I said, we're going to work every day to, between you and me and JC, we're going to work to put you in the best position we can with that. But it's also a big part of our responsibility to teach them to be good, gracious, hardworking young men. On top of their parents, we're like a set of parents away from home. And this is a really crucial time in their lives to kind of help mold them just to be successful people, whether it's in golf or in the real world. And that's a really, really, really important piece of the puzzle for me.
It's especially so too, golf is such a game of overcoming adversity and difficult, circumstances. And I think of how few, one of the reasons I was able to pinpoint that the guest was going to be you was because there are so few golfers that have come out of upstate New York, right? It is an inhospitable climate for the kind of practice that it takes.
That's the understatement of all time.
To get to a professional tour like that. But it doesn't just have to be climate. So when you talk about to your players about that, the team members, how do you help them get through? You have personal experience with that. How would you, whether it's the guys that are on your team or to any younger player that's coming out of an area where it's maybe not the easiest to get to the next level?
Yeah.
How do you transmit your experience or any lessons to them?
A lot of it is, and it's kind of a cliche with a lot of sports you hear is the process, but it's really, I don't know if there's a better word to use than that. We talk a lot about being consistent on how you do things, practicing, playing, routines. In golf, it's such a slow mental game that having pre-shot routines like rock solid. I mean, these guys, we go through them with everybody when they first get here and they think I'm a nutbag. And this is stuff that I didn't come up with on my own. This is stuff I learned from Bob Rotella, who, Bob Rotella is the grandfather of sports psychology for golf, in my opinion. And the guy was a genius, and probably I wouldn't have made it 25 plus years on tour if I hadn't worked with Bob my rookie year on tour. And so I give him a lot of credit for that. But it's a lot of it is being consistent with how you do things. Time management at this age, especially kids, they've got school. Most kids, obviously guys, they don't love, their athletes, and most of them don't love school, or all of them don't love school. Some of them are better about getting it done than others. And, you got to impress on them that, listen, there's got to take care of the things that you don't really like. Like every job, no matter how much you love it, has parts of it that you just hate, but you got to do it, right? I mean, you just got to do it. It's like talking to me right now. You probably hate this, but you got to do it. It's part of your job. But these guys, they got to take care of their business, because I'm like, listen, when we go to a tournament and it's the night before the first round and you're trying to scramble and finish a paper at midnight and we got to wake up at 5:00, you think that's going to help you play better golf?
Yeah.
Like I saw it my whole life. Golf's a really hard game to play at a high level when everything in your life is in order. And it's almost impossible when things are out of order in your life. I see it, when I was playing, guys, I could almost go back and see these, you could pick famous guys who are having rough years, and I'm like, they're going through divorce, or they're building a house that they're uncomfortable building because the wife's spending $10 million on a house, and they wanted to spend
right.
whatever. So it's those outside stressors, just like every other job, but like in golf, it's really hard to perform at the level you want to when you have that. So that's a big thing that we talk to them about. But it's really, with me, the biggest thing I changed, I think, when I got here was just bringing a different kind of work ethic and trying to show them, like, this is what it looks like. I told them in our first meeting that I played for a long time at the highest level, and I did see some guys that didn't have to work at it very hard, that they were so talented and they were so gifted that it came pretty easy to them, but I could count them on both hands. And I said, I called those guys unicorns.
Yeah.
And I just looked at them all at the conference table, and I said, we're not betting that we've got a unicorn in this room. So we're going to work, and we're going to do everything we can smartly. It doesn't mean you got to work 10 hours a day, but doing it properly, making practice plans for them, and making sure they're very efficient with their time and working on the right stuff. Like, a lot of times kids they'll tend to work on the things that they're pretty good at or that they like, and not the things, and they avoid the things that they struggle at. It's just human nature. It's common, but we got to make them work on the things that they're weak at.
Josh, I'll give you one more piece of trivia.
Yeah.
So he, like us, had kids in 2001. You and I, he had more than we did. We each had one. He had 3.
Wow.
He had triplets in 2001.
That'll distract from your career just a little bit.
He had triplets. We each had one. He had 3 in the same year.
We had a hard time getting pregnant, so we had a doctor friend help us a little bit with that, and maybe he helped a little too much. But I was talking about Jeff Sluman. It was the Western Open, and my wife had been going through all these tests. We knew she was pregnant, and there was all this blood work and the numbers and all this stuff. I can go into that, but the numbers were way higher than they were supposed to be. And you know how doctors are. They're like, well, we don't know if it's more than one. They don't want to get your hopes up that, whatever. So my wife was going in when I was at the tournament to figure out how many kids there were, if it was 1, 2, 3, whatever. Yeah. And I finished. It was during the first round, and I finished that round. I was going to call her, like hop in a portalette and call her, but I'm like, I don't want to wake myself out on the golf course. So I waited till I was done, called her. She told me we're having triplets. Basically, I hung up on her. Like, oh my God! And I was staying with Jeff Sluman, and I could literally draw a perfect picture of the ceiling fan in the guest room I was staying in, because I spent a lot of time that week staring at that ceiling fan, and I think I finished 5th or 6th.
I was going to ask you, how did you do in the tournament, right?
Yeah, that was like out of desperation, I think. I'm like, I got to buy 3 of this, 3 of this, 3 of this.
Yeah. Well, you would have won the tournament. Remember, you said if everything was aligned in your life, you probably would have won it.
Yeah, maybe.
A lot of great players have won that tournament. When you look back at your career, what are the memories that stand out to you about your happiest moments being on tour?
Yeah, my happiest moments, a lot. I mean, it's not really like winning the Canadian Open at Glen Abbey. When I was, I basically grew up right down the road and had a ton of friends and family there. It was my first win. That was incredibly special. I only won twice, so I didn't have a lot of those high moments. I was really, like, overall, I would say I'm really proud of just how kind of consistently, to be honest with you, consistently average, probably. I say I had moments of brilliance surrounded by a lot of mediocrity, but I was able to keep my job for 25 years and do something that I love. But my fondest memory, without a doubt, and I just lost my dad in June, but he was a golf pro at Wanaka. And so he taught me everything I know about golf. And my fondest memory was the first time I played the Masters. my dad and I flew up together, and we got in the courtesy car that the Augusta gives you, and we drove down Magnolia Lane, just he and I together. And he had a tear running down his cheek. And that was probably, for me, that's my fondest memory in golf, personally. My fondest memory, period, probably is the SEC and national championships. When you win something as a team and with the same kind of group of guys that we had the first, basically, that was my second year, the first 2 years, and trying to get them to buy into a different way of doing things and challenging them in different ways. And it's not always rosy. They push back and they fight with you a little bit, and which is fine. But to have that kind of success and to be able to look at those guys and say, man, I might be dead and gone, but these guys are going to come back and be honored on the field 30 years from now at a football game, and they're going to be linked together for the rest of their lives. That was easily the highlight of my competitive career.
That's great.
Well, you mentioned Lindy Ruff a couple times, and we talked about him, and I had forgotten how close you guys were as friends, and I know he's back coaching up in Buffalo, and I'm sure you guys are still in touch. You're both coaches now, right? So do you share things together as coaches? And we know that he's obviously that team has struggled for reasons beyond him season, but we know his resume is darn good. Yeah. We were back covering him when he won a lot of games. So do you guys share things and share coaching tips?
You know what? I don't I'm really paranoid about talking to him about hockey. I just want to be his friend and not, even though I'm a huge hockey fan. Yeah. I'm a massive hockey fan, and I just don't want to bug him about that stuff, So we've talked a little bit general over the years, just general philosophy stuff. The games are obviously so different, but there are a lot of parallels with all sports, all the athletes that I've met in other sports, mental things and preparation things and routine things. So I was a goalie when I was a kid, and I always loved going to a game and watch goalies, because they're kind of kooky like golfers, and they have these routines, they have these warm-up routines. They do the same thing in the crease all the time. They move, and it's weird stuff like that that I kind of like. And I'm sure, just regular players have the same type of routines. I'm sure they warm up and do the same stuff all the time and things like that.
Does he ask you about golf?
Oh yeah, a lot.
I would imagine, yeah.
Yeah.
Where's the equity there, Dudley?
Yeah, I don't mind that. Well, not a lot, but he loves golf. I don't know if he obviously doesn't get to play as much anymore, but not the best golfer. Actually, ironically, pretty funny story. Hopefully, he won't get mad at me. But I met him when he was an assistant for the Panthers, and I was living in Fort Lauderdale, and he actually, ironically, went and took a golf lesson from my brother-in-law. And I was just practicing at the other end of the tee, and he brought me down, introduced me. I'm like, oh, man, I grew up watching you play. And he told me that.
That's cool.
You know what? He didn't like that. But so we hit it off right away and played a ton of golf and became great friends ever since. But he played golf 100% left-handed, but he could hit a driver 100 yards left, and the next one could go 100 yards right.
Yeah.
He had no idea. He was okay after the driver, but he had no idea where. And he's a big guy. He is a big guy, and could hit it hard. And he grabbed my driver one day on the range. We were messing around, and I'm a righty, obviously, and he's hit it right-handed, and he hit it 250. Basically, not every one was on a rope, but they were all findable, way better than his left-handed. Yeah. So he started playing, driving it right-handed and playing the rest of it left-handed.
Oh my
gosh. Little by little, he started throwing other right-handed clubs in. So you go play with him now, and God only knows what he's got in his bag now. You never know where to stand playing with him. But,
well, that's why I said the people at St. Andrews were in jeopardy there, right?
So, we played at a place, San Francisco Golf Club, one of my favorite clubs on the planet. We went out there. He came out for a U.S. Open at Pebble, and we went out and played there with a couple other buddies one day. And the 10th tee was literally right on the edge of the clubhouse in this beautiful old this is a ritzy club in San Francisco. And it's all picture windows for about 60, 80 yards down the tee. And he's a lefty. So it's on the left. So he could hit it right off the end of the club. And he's like, he couldn't hit the tee shot. He wanted no part of that.
All right, so before we let you go, just impart some coaching wisdom on us. As a back niner, a fellow back niner, we're all about the same age, Dudley.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you embrace now as, we're all hoping we're on the 10th hole. We got a lot of time left, but what are some of the things that you focus on now yourself?
Yeah, I would say, for me, I've been trying to take better care of myself as I'm getting older. I watched my dad, unfortunately, the last few years of his life, he wasn't able to play golf, which is the thing he loved the most. Couldn't hit balls even. And his biggest regret was not taking better care of himself. He was always a really big guy. And it was kind of a valuable lesson I learned. Probably the last lesson I learned from him, unintentionally, and not that I've been in bad shape, but I've been carrying too much weight. So as we get a little bit older, I've been trying to focus on this last couple months, been working hard on what I'm eating and in my body, and just trying to work on my flexibility and my balance. So as I get older, I can function better. I can do the things that I want to do. I can keep coaching, and been trying to play more because I can play with the guys. And I don't play every day, but I still can go out there and give them a run, which is fun. And
that's cool.
So, for me personally, like in my life, that's what I'm doing. And I'm trying to give my life and my team as much as I can. I'm at the golf course 7 o'clock in the morning till dark. I actually started helping the girls team this year too. So I've got double duty, which I love. The girls just, you guys have girls, so they just listen better than guys, and they just crave help. Yeah. They just want to get better, and so do the guys too, but it's just different. And I'm so focused on my health and my team. That's kind of given me a second life in this competitive scenario.
Yeah, that's the real stuff. That's great.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time. I mean, I think all of us come to this realization, and some of it is from watching our elderly parents with those regrets. I have a similar situation with my father, who doesn't play golf anymore and sure wishes he could. So yeah, you do dedicate yourself, or you kind of rededicate yourself to making sure that you're doing everything you can to stay healthy as long as you can. So I commend you for that. So
thank you.
Yeah, Dudley, thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure to have you. And I'm so glad that, our mutual friend connected us or reconnected us. Cause again, I know our paths crossed up in a Sabres press box or somewhere like that back in the day. 100%. So congratulations again on all your success at UF, and we will definitely stay in touch. And I'd love to get over there. We're both in Florida. Josh is in Orlando. I'm in Delray Beach. I'd love to get to see a match. I'm just a golf junkie. I love watching golf. One of my friends has a junior golfer who's pretty good up in Massachusetts, and I do anything I can to watch him. So I'd love to come and watch a match sometime. So
you're welcome anytime. Just let me know. You got my contact.
I do. Thanks, Dudley.
It's so great to meet you. Thanks so much, and go Gators.
Me too. Thanks for having me. Go Gators.
See you.
Yeah. Take care.
Well, Dennis, nice job. I had a smile on my face the entire time, which was great.
Great guy.
I've always wanted to meet him. I never have met him.
Okay.
I never have met him. And
because he thought he had met both of us because he just knew the names because of the Buffalo connection,
I wouldn't stake my life on it, but I'm pretty sure.
I figured for sure back in the Empire Sports Network days, you did a cooking show with him or something.
I should have. I don't know if he likes to cook or not. But one of the things that strikes me, I'm stunned that he only won twice, because there was that run of
55 top 10s.
10 or 12 years where he was in the mix a lot. He was always dangerous as a player.
During that stretch of his prime of his career.
That's an amazing stretch.
Yeah. So I think, and just a really good guy, everything you ever heard. And I'm so glad that before you came in that we made that connection with Lindy, because I had forgotten about that. And I am sure that I ran into him up in a press box or something, because he was always around. He was always, because he was friends with him and golf tournaments and things. So I was positive. But it was neat. A mutual friend of ours, Jeff Fountain, was the one who connected us, because he is best friends with the head coach of Florida. So who we'll have on at some time, who also has an incredible story I'll tell you about offline. But so it's cool.
The other thing I think I like about it is, he could have easily become resentful, right? After being successful and having a great career and the injuries, right? And now, I've had some back injuries at various, and it's really demoralizing when you can't move the way you want to move. And especially so when you're a top athlete like he was, where you're really depending on your body for your success. And he's found joy again. This has been a theme for a couple of our guests this season and in previous seasons, but has found a way back to the game and to something that he loved. I think that's terrific.
Well, yeah, and without being able to be on the Champions Tour and playing, whatever it is, Pro-Am, and then 3 or 4 days, depending on the tournament, he's not going to be Bernard Longer, right? Like, he's not going to have this longevity of a career where he's healthy the whole time. He can't do that. So he finds a way to have greater joy, by imparting his wisdom on other players and having that opportunity. And then, to raise triplets. And he also has one other kid who's 15, so he's got 4. But yeah, that was wild when I heard he had triplets. Can you imagine?
At the Western Open, which, by the way, has produced a lot of fantastic winners. Tiger used to win there when they played it at Cog Hill all the time.
You should know.
Yeah, I covered it. I covered that.
Yeah, you've been out there a lot.
They don't do it always in Chicago anymore, which is kind of a travesty that there's not a regular tour stop in a golf mad city like Chicago is. But
right. What are a couple other takeaways from before we go?
Well, I mean, I think, the good lesson about taking care of ourselves, right? I mean, that's something that we feel, that there are lots of ways to take care of ourselves and to make sure that, golf is a game that if we take care of ourselves, we can play our entire lives. I know that it's painful for your dad not to be able to play and for you not to be able to play with him. And by the flip of that is that I can still play with my dad and he's still smashing the ball at almost 81 years old. And, so I think those are good lessons too, right? Lessons that we've heard before, but I think are always worth reiterating. How about you?
Yeah, no, I think the lessons that golf teaches you during the course of your life, but particularly these college kids with the time management and learning how to balance your life and learning how to react to adversity and all the things that happen on a golf course. I could see him as a great coach who's been through so much adversity himself, both, on the golf course, I'm sure in tournaments, but also physically, that he's able to impart wisdom that is really valuable to those kids, really valuable to those kids. I mean, I love what he said about girls being more coachable. That was cool. As a girl dad.
I'll add this too, that, people always ask me, what is it about golf, right? And especially, people who don't play. And I think there's something about the overcoming adversity. Golf is a game of tremendous adversity. It's about nothing but adversity. It's about managing your adversity to get the best possible bad score that you can, right? In a way. And that's one of the lessons that it teaches you, right? You do something really well, you hit a great shot, and the ball bounces into a place where you're like, I cannot believe it ended up here. I've got nothing. Well, how do you now say, okay, well, how do I manage this so that I can still make a 4 or a 5 on this hole and not try to be a hero? How do I overcome this particular discouragement so that at the end of the day, I'm pleased with the way that I've processed and performed? Great lessons, I think, that the game teaches you and that he's able to pass on to his players in Gainesville.
I did think that this episode needed a theme song. You remember the song Owner of a Lonely Heart?
Yeah, by Yes.
Yes.
So yes, I do.
Yeah. Anyway, I just thought maybe we can dub that in as the outro here as we say goodbye on this edition. You want to sing it?
Owner of a lonely heart, much better.
We'll see you next time on the Back Nine.